The Royals get blasted in game one by the New York Yankees. What did we make of it? We'll tell you in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can find us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners out there, here's how the format works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes, as well as our 60-second YouTube shorts that you can always find on our channel. We've also just added a postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo after each and every Royals game. You can check out his 15-minute live recording. So he'll go live right after the game. He'll post the link. Very easy to find it on our channel if you want that immediate reaction right after the game. Because as for us, we might be bringing you episodes in the afternoon, late in the evening, like today, early in the morning. We like to move around a little bit. Mainly it comes down to my work schedule and if I'm able to get them in the timely manner. But you can always count on 5 episodes a week. Before we get started, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. Not the greatest of circumstances to be bringing you this episode after the Royals got absolutely smoked by the New York Yankees 10-2. It was 2-1 at some point, but this did not feel like a game that was really ever that close. Whether it be Aaron Judge hitting one of the furthest balls I've ever seen hit in that ballpark, going on top of the Royals Hall of Fame, or Austin Wells' 3-run shot with 2 strikes and 2 outs, and it all began with a bloop single from Dominguez. Like, that game never really felt like the Royals had control of it. And I couldn't say that anyway because they never led at any point. And Noah Cameron, being a rookie, he was bound to have a bad start. It's not to make an excuse, but we all can be aware of the fact that he was not going to throw 6 or 7 shutout innings every single time out. And against this Yankees lineup, it felt like a time that just might happen with the way that Aaron Judge just destroys rookie pitchers hitting over 500. That was bound to happen, it felt like. And Austin Wells seems to terrorize Royals pitching as well. And that dates back to like 2022 or 23. I can't quite remember when he made his debut, but whenever he made his debut, he was always hitting the Royals. Certainly did last year. I remember a couple of times he went yard against Brady Singer. But that's a game where you can't say much positive about it. I mean, even if Taylor Clark doesn't give up 4 runs before recording an out, and it's not 10-1. I mean, losing 5-1 tonight wouldn't have felt very good either, or 5-2, because the offense didn't get things going. We talked about it on yesterday's episode about how it felt that in the last 6 games since Jack Caglione's promotion, the offense was starting to put it together a little bit. That wasn't the case tonight. I can also say that when you've got a Cy Young candidate on the mound, you're not going to look like how you did on Sunday, putting together 7 runs. I mean, there's been one team this year to score a lot of runs off Max Fried. And surprise, surprise, it was the Los Angeles Dodgers. Everybody else has barely gotten anything off of Max Fried. But the Royals did find a way to scratch across 1 early on in the game, and not much after that. And now you turn the page to tomorrow, where you're going to be trying to fight off another series loss. You're going to try to set up a rubber match for Sunday. But if there was one game to pinpoint that you were probably not going to win in this series, it would be game 1. And that's no disrespect to Noah Cameron, but you have Max Fried going up against a rookie pitcher making his 6th big league start. No, it doesn't favor you. Tomorrow, it does favor you. You've got Kris Bubic on the mound, and you got Clark Schmidt throwing for the Yankees. Then on Thursday, you've got Seth Lugo going up against Will Warren, somebody with a 5+ ERA. I'm not trying to say that you're going to win both of those games because it's going to be an absolute dogfight to win both of those two games if you're in it. This Yankees lineup, even without Juan Soto, is a grind to get through. And that was my takeaway from tonight. And I'm sure I share a lot of the same frustration that Royals fans have out there, which is you see some of the at-bats the Yankees put together, that just doesn't happen in the Royals lineup. It doesn't matter who's up there for the Royals. They're not working the count through 9, 10, 11 pitches and then doubling down the line or homering in the way that Austin Wells did. And Austin Wells is far from their best player. I mean, Jack Caglione has maybe the raw power that Aaron Judge has, but he's clearly got a ways to go until he's in that territory where he's feared like Aaron Judge. And of course, I'm going to say that anyway. He's played 7 Major League games, and Aaron Judge is having yet another Barry Bonds type season. I can't recall another hitter since Barry Bonds that has been this feared at the plate the last 2 seasons. I mean, Aaron Judge, whether he was a Yankee or not, what he's doing is unbelievable. And yes, it stings that he's a Yankee and, you know, the New York Yankees embody that villain of Major League Baseball, and as they should. I mean, you embrace it. I'm wearing a Chiefs shirt, right? Here in Kansas City with the Chiefs, you embrace the villainous role. You got to, because people aren't going to root for you. They don't root for Aaron Judge to do well. But as a baseball fan, I can sit back and be in awe about what he did in the first inning. But even in that at bat, it was a big mistake by Noah Cameron. And I tweeted this out there. I don't know why he threw a strike. I really don't. You fall behind 2-0. You got Cody Bellinger on deck. Yeah, if Cody Bellinger gaps one that's 2-0, all right. But 2-0 meatball to Aaron Judge. I'm surprised he didn't hit it over the Hall of Fame, like onto the concourse, and it bounces onto the highway. I was surprised maybe that ball wasn't hit even further based off where it was located. But that's a rookie mistake, and Noah Cameron learned from it. He also had the stones to go right back at him in his next at-bat, struck him out in back-to-back at-bats. And then he got a lazy fly ball that felt like it happened 5 or 6 times at the Royals tonight. We're just no man's land. Jack Caglione's not going to run down that ball, being a new right fielder. Salvi's definitely not running down that ball because of his speed at his age. And Jonathan India shifted over towards second base. And I mean the actual bag and not at his usual position. So the Yankees, they put together some great at-bats. They did that in the postseason last year, and they're going to do it tomorrow, and they're going to do it on Thursday. You need to find a way in some of those moments to just get out of the jam. It's so easy for me to say that. I'm not a big league arm. Never have been, never will be, never had a chance to. I am nowhere near as talented as those guys that take the bump at that level. But going up against that lineup, it's just the longer they're up there, they're not going to ground out. They're not going to pop out. They're not going to strike out. They're either going to drive somebody in or they're going to walk. Like I go to the first at bat tonight of Jonathan India. It's different. You're facing Max Fried, and he's got devastating stuff. But a 3-2 pitch that was inside, and he swings at. You know, the Yankees tonight, they get a 3-2 pitch that's a little bit down in the way or a little bit inside, they're taking it. If it's a strike, they're swinging and they're connecting with it pretty good. And this segment isn't to be about, you know, praising the Yankees for just a dominant performance. It could all flip tomorrow. The Royals could go out there and win 6-0 tomorrow. And we're talking about a completely different thing. But that's what I notice about the Yankees and why when you're looking at the postseason, you know in the back of your mind, you're going to need to find an advantage somewhere to beat this ball club. So far, they haven't done it this year. Last year, they didn't do it. They lost 3 of 4 in Kansas City, and they lost 2 of 3 in New York, and then they lost, what would that have been, 3 of 4 again in the postseason? It's a team historically, and maybe it's unfair to do this because the Yankees have always been, you know, a winning ball club. They've won a lot of championships. And after the George Brett days and the Frank White days, the Royals went through a treacherous run. Or when the Yankees are winning 3 straight World Series, the Royals aren't winning any games at all. So they dominated during that stretch. But historically, it's been a team that they just struggle with. That's to put it very simple. They don't beat the Yankees that often. And it's not to make an excuse. They got to find a way to do it. I mean, they got to find a way when those pinstripes are worn out on the field, when the gray New York jerseys are being worn in your own stadium, you got to find a way to live up to the moment. Big crowd tonight. It's unfortunate that if you made your way out there and it was buzzing and it was loud, you were let down very early on. They got to find a way to play better in front of big crowds like that. I want to say Royals Review put this out there that dating back the last couple of seasons, I could be getting this wrong, but I know it was 14 games they've played with over 30,000 people. They've won 4 of them. So they're 4-10 in those games. And I expect a big crowd tomorrow and a big crowd on Thursday and big crowds this weekend. Maybe not 30+ thousand or 30,000 plus, but you're going to have to count on, the fans showing up. You're going to have to expect that to happen and not have the jitters and come out and play well and punch somebody in the mouth. Tonight, it was the Yankees punching you in the mouth, and you didn't get up off the mat. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, I got this comment a lot tonight on Twitter, and I want to be very clear on which side I stand on. And that is, are the Royals going to be buyers or are they going to be sellers? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Before we move on to our next segment, I want to tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right every time. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/GM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off on your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. This, to me, feels like the perfect time to maybe take a step back, give some insight, some reasoning as to why I react to certain wins and certain losses in some way. And I know in the past, I've been asked this before, why don't you really let loose, right? Why don't you, rant a little bit when there's a bad loss and you can't deny it's a bad loss? And I believe that's absolutely fair. That when there's a bad loss, the last thing you want to hear as a fan is somebody telling you that it's all fine and it's really not that bad. Because fans are fanatics. You are invested. You care about this team. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming here to listen to this podcast. But I've always tried to bring up that baseball is a different sport than any other sport out there. We can rant about tonight. I could scream my head off. I could not curse into the mic because then this podcast would be no more. I would get in trouble for that. But I could really put my heart and soul into a rant and how tonight is totally unacceptable in front of 30+ thousand fans. I could do that. Then they play tomorrow. Okay? So that emotion is just better suited, in my opinion, for like football. You play once a week. You got a bad loss on a Saturday in college football or a bad loss on Sunday. You got all week to sit on that. The Royals and the fans have less than 24 hours to sit on this loss. As we talked about in that doubleheader for St. Louis, that's a different situation. But you lose game one, gut-wrenching fashion. You're pissed off. You're mad. How could they do this and this? How could they pull Noah Cameron? How could the bullpen do that? The offense was stagnant. Then they won that night. And you forget about game one. If the Royals win tomorrow, you forget about tonight. And if they don't, you'll still be mad. You'll be pissed off that they're 500, but then they got another game to play the next day. So that's why I don't always react the way that a lot of people on the timeline do. And tonight was no different than any other loss that I have experienced this year in terms of the reaction. And this is the same thing as last year. So I do apologize to those out there that want me to give a big reaction. And I can tell you what, right now, I'm probably never going to. If there is a bad loss tomorrow, next week, next month, where they get walked off, they have one as bad as the Braves did last week against Arizona, where they blew a 7-run lead in the 9th inning. Like, yes, am I frustrated? I'll always be frustrated after a loss. I was frustrated after tonight. But I'm not going to constantly go into the cycle of, well, this team is just awful and they need to sell and they got to do this and this. They're terrible. They're unwatchable. Here's what I'll say about the selling part of it. For years in Kansas City, and I know it's not always the way you should approach each and every year, but I'll just go back 2 years ago. And I remember doing this podcast. There were so many people that were upset that the Royals didn't even try to win, that John Sherman didn't put any money into the team, and they didn't try to win baseball games. And J.J. Piccolo didn't make moves. And it was infuriating that here we are, a passionate fan base, willing to show up, and you can't put a winning team on the field. How often do we see that in baseball nowadays? The Rockies have 12 or 13 wins. Fans show up. They should be rewarded with an owner and a GM that are willing to put in the effort to build a winning ball club. And those years in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, I mean, from the time they won the World Series, the Royals did not have a winning season for nearly a decade. It felt not as bad as it was in the post-2000 era, just because it had been a decade plus since they had done anything relevant in the postseason. I mean, you can all recall how bad it got. But part of my reason of not wanting to sell, it's June 10th. Nobody's going to be selling this early. Not even the teams that are obvious sellers are going to be selling. But to that point about begging for a winner, well, no, this team's not playing like a true winner. But going into tonight, they were 2 games out of the top wild card spot. Not out of a playoff spot. They were 2 games out of the top wild card spot. Minnesota got blasted by 12 runs tonight, so you didn't lose any ground to them. Cleveland is a half game ahead of you, so you can leapfrog them with a win tomorrow, and they lose tomorrow. They've not been playing great ball. No, Boston is struggling, under 500. They won tonight, but they beat Tampa Bay, who's ahead of you in the postseason race. There is a chunk of American League teams that are all very equivalent and fighting for a spot. So if you are somebody out there saying they're not going to win the World Series, they ought to just sell everybody. Well, there was a large chunk of people that begged just for competitive and competent baseball for years to have a chance to be 2 games out of a playoff spot, to have a fighting opportunity in the second half. This team, in my opinion, is going to have that. And unless they catastrophically collapse and they're 15 games under 500, like, you cannot make an argument that they are going to be a buyer, then they're going to sell some pieces. But maybe the biggest argument for why they're not going to sell is they just called up Jack Caglione. They were willing to call him up 2 months into the season. And if you do that, you have not made your bed, but you have been very clear of your intentions of what you're trying to do. And if things start going south a little bit, the answer is not going to be, well, let's send him back down and let's punt on the entire season, because of how wide open the American League is. Detroit's dominance, as we've said, has skewed how bad things really are in the Central. The Royals are a game and a half out of second place in their division. They're in fourth. It doesn't sound good. Don't get my words twisted there. It's not fun to be in fourth place. But they are in no way, shape, or form going to be trying to sell when they're 34 and 33 and 2 games out or 2.5 games out of the top wild card spot. We are less than 70 games into the season. And guess what? This feeling, this anger, it's going to happen again. This doesn't go away, right? If you've watched baseball long enough, and I'm not trying to come across as condescending at all, but it's such a long season. The highs are constant. If you're a competitive team, and I know that expectations change things, like I'm not looking at this team and saying, well, they can be 500 because I was so used to losing. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying they're not far off from being a playoff team. And when you're not far off from being a playoff team, you're not going to punt. You're not going to sell because you may, not make it. In my opinion, this team is going to try and make a push. And as we've seen in October, you get your foot in the door, you have an opportunity. Right back in June, when the Royals in 2024, when they got smoked by New York, this is not even a team that can hang on the ball field for 2 innings with the Yankees. This was like a AAA team and a big league team. And the Yankees had like a plus 125 run differential. And yet, they went into the postseason. They took 1 game in New York. They didn't win the series, but they got better as the season went on. I remember multiple times last year, the 7-game losing streak in September, when they lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies, when they lost the series to the Athletics, it was all doom and gloom. This team's terrible. They need to sell. They need to sell because they can't do it. Baseball is a sport that is too constant every single day to have those highs and lows. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. And this team could bottom out. They got to sell because I do believe in that. You can sell to get pieces. But I've also seen this argument of, well, they should sell, but then bring in bats. Well, to me, that's not truly selling. If you are living by selling, you are trading away pieces for bats that are not ready this year. That's selling. If you are making lateral moves and you're selling somebody to bring in a bat, to me, that's still technically buying. You're trying to add to this team. You may be subtracting, and I get that side. I get that argument from the fan base or some of you out there. But in my opinion, they're not selling. They're not selling when they've called up Jack Caglione, when they are less than 3 games out of the top wild card spot, when they are a game and a half out of second place in their own division. They're not going to be selling. Things could change, and they could bottom out, and then they could be selling. But right now, that is not the mentality of, oh, they may not be good enough, they're going to sell. Because to me, that hurts the sport. If you've got a chance and you're less than 70 games in and now's the time to sell, no, I can't get on board with that. But again, this is always a free platform to express your thoughts and your opinions. So let us know in the comment page below if you believe the Royals should still be buyers, try to make a push, or if you are completely out on this team and you want them to be selling at the deadline. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about tomorrow's game and how this club can help out Kris Bubic. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Before our final segment, want to tell you about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB for half off on your first year. And I am somebody, as I'm sure a lot of you out there are as well, that needs a constant update, just keeping tabs on what my money is going to, how much is left in the bank account, what I got tied up with subscriptions. Monarch Money is going to take care of that for you. That way you're not blindsided when maybe your bank account looks a little bit low. Going ahead into tomorrow, and I thought it would be fitting to close the show like this because we've had our opening segment, we had our reaction, ugly loss, frustrating loss. We get to the second part. Here's where we all can relax a little bit and understand that, things are not going well right now. They still are above 500. You shouldn't be satisfied about where you're at. And you got to beat good teams. To be a good team, you got to beat good teams. And to close the show, this is about looking ahead to tomorrow. So when everybody wakes up tomorrow, you'll have the page turned. You're looking ahead to tomorrow night, day 2 with Jack Caglione at Kauffman Stadium, Kris Bubic on the bump. I'm going to be going out there. Hopefully a lot more people will be doing the same thing as me and showing up to the ballpark and supporting and trying to see a win out there, as a lot of people did tonight, but they got let down. And you know what? That's the flip side to this. And you'll see me, as I want to say, I brought it up in a previous episode last week, which is that I'm very pro player. I like to side with the players. I like to give reason to certain things and maybe give a longer leash to some guys. And I do that to a fault at times. It's burned me before. I've absolutely been wrong many times on this podcast, but I can also see the fan side of it and how tonight you'd be pissed off about it. You spent money on parking, on tickets, on beer, on food, and you go out there and they get smoked. That's not fun for anybody out there. So I can see the anger with that, where if you're driving home and you're irate and you're checking out our postcast with Chance Lebo, you're just mad because you did all of that. You put in all that effort and you didn't get any type of game tonight. You just saw the Yankees put up a lot of runs, as we've seen many times before at Kauffman Stadium. As much as I hate to say it, it's not the first time it's happened. But tomorrow, would love to see a different energy from the start. Not to take your first at bats when you're trailing 2-0. And here's the thing with this Yankees lineup. It's loaded. We all know it's loaded. Doesn't have Juan Soto anymore, but you got to get through Paul Goldschmidt, who's having a revival of his career. You got to get through, Trent Grisham, who's had a bit of a revival himself. Then you got Aaron Judge. Then you got Cody Bellinger. Then you got Anthony Volpe. Then you got Jazz Chisholm. And you got Austin Wells. And DJ LeMahieu had a couple of hits tonight. Like, it was never ending with that group. And so my point of this segment, if you're watching on YouTube and you can see on the lineup for today's show or tonight's show, they need to help out Kris Bubic, because I expect Kris Bubic to pitch well tomorrow. He's got a little extra rest. Hopefully that doesn't throw off his rhythm, but you got to make sure that he can pitch with a cushion, because I can see this game going one or two ways tomorrow. Fingers crossed it doesn't go the way it did in Game 1. Unless you're a Yankees fan, you probably want it to go exactly the way it did in Game 1. But if you're a Royals fan, I can see it going one or two ways with Kris Bubic. Either A, he's going to pitch really well, and you're going to get some run support, even just a little bit, like 3 or 4 runs, and he gets to pitch with a little bit of a lead. And you can pull away with a 4-0 lead or a 5-1 lead and then turn it over to the bullpen. Or it's going to go the other way, which we've seen before in Kris Bubic's starts. He pitches really well, and the Royals offense just doesn't score. And then eventually, that lineup burns you. But what's different about this Yankees lineup compared to some of the lineups he's faced? Them burning you is not some measly sac fly, and then you lose the game 1-0. This is a team, as we saw in multiple innings tonight, that can put up 4 or 5 in a hurry. And that can completely take you out of the game. So tomorrow, this offense, you got to give them a little bit of help. And you're going to be facing somebody you do have experience in facing. You're not getting a tough lefty in Max Fried. You're getting 2 right-handers to close out this series. And Clark Schmidt, who started Game 3 of the ALDS. And then you have Will Warren, who was roughed up really badly and LA 2 starts ago, but then bounced back a little bit in his most previous start. But you've got an opportunity to get this offense back to what they looked like in St. Louis, and going toe-to-toe with an elite offensive team. And with Kris Bubic on the bump, you can feel good about him tossing a quality start. What's got me feeling uneasy is that this offense may not put together a lot, may not string together multiple hits, may not put a ball over the fence. And if you give this Yankees lineup multiple opportunities to break open the game, they're going to eventually do it. They just are. You can play with fire and dance with danger through 5 innings. And if it's 0-0 tomorrow going into the 6th, my confidence level in the Royals winning that game is getting lower and lower. Just due to the fact that the Yankees have an offense that the Royals do not. The Royals need to be the one to jump out early. They need to be the one to pounce on Clark Schmidt and give Kris Bubic that run support. Everything I'm saying is very simple on the surface. And I feel I've done it before in saying that, well, they need to give this guy some run support. It would have been great to give Noah Cameron some run support. But tomorrow, after the way you got your ass kicked in game 1, that needs to happen in game 2. This offense needs more from Maikel Garcia, from Jonathan India, from Bobby Wood Jr., from Vinny, from Salvi, from Cags, top to bottom. A total team effort, as we saw in St. Louis, as we saw on Sunday in Chicago. That version of the offense, it's got to come out to play tomorrow. Because if you don't, you're going to get stuck in that situation where you're down by 1 or protecting a 1-run lead, and that Yankees offense at any given moment can just destroy you. And they've got that power. And they've got the front runner for the MVP right now in Aaron Judge, that when he's up to the plate, he can flip the game on its head with one swing. And Kris Bubic has quite the task tomorrow. He's faced that lineup before. It was one of his lesser starts on the year. But this time he's not at Yankee Stadium. He's back home at Kauffman Stadium. First pitch will be 6:40. Clark Schmidt versus Kris Bubic. Royals will look to even up the series tomorrow night and move to 2 games over 500. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll be giving you another reaction. We'll be coming from Kauffman Stadium, but we'll have another reaction for Game 2 between the Royals and the Yankees. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.